Welcome everyone. COVID pandemic has is a black swan event in human history.
Khushbu, just unmute your. Ashish, Patel, you tell him that he's on mute. Okay.
Welcome everyone. The COVID pandemic is a black swan event in the human history, most likely yet devastating. In this backdrop, as the world reboots, it's time to reflect and prepare for the brand new world. Nothing is going to be the same. The way we commute, the way we purchase, uh, the way we work. As businesses and individuals readjust to the new dawn, we embark upon the journey of ways of negotiation, innovation, and transactions. This series aims to do the same. BSc Reboot brings together the finest and best minds in finance, technology, and law to decode what the future holds for us. Come and join them on the sojourn of exploration as we all relaunch ourselves in a brave new world. Connect, converge, and reboot. And uh, let's have Ashish to have an opening remark of this series. Ashish Kumar Chauhan is the MD CEO of Bombay Stock Exchange. He was instrumental in setting up India's first fully automated screen-based trading system and first commercial satellite communication network. He has also created several path-breaking frameworks, including Nifty Index, NSE certifications in financial markets, among many others. Due to his work in various fields, spanning quarter of a century, he is considered as one of the foremost experts in the fields of information technology, finance, market, microstructure of markets, cricket, telecommunication, organized retail, oil and gas refining, and Indian social issues. He's a recipient of several Indian and international awards, including Distinguished Alumnus Award from both his alma mater, IIT Bombay and IIM Kolkata, which is a rare achievement. He is distinguished visiting faculty at Ryerson University of Toronto and an honorary professor at Nottingham University Business School. He has also co-authored a book on a history of BSc titled The Temple of Wealth Creation. Ashish, over to you.
Thank you, Khushbu. Lieutenant General Sri Rajesh Pant, Sri Brijesh Singh, Inspector General Maharashtra, Sri Yuvak Savit, Sri Shiv Kumar Pandey. Thank you for joining today. Good evening and welcome to BSC's webinar series Reboot, FinTech and Law in a New World. Today we have joined to discuss the corporate cyber risk landscape. I would like to thank all of you, all the listeners and participants for all joining us and being a part of this event. The COVID-19 pandemic has rapidly and unexpectedly brought disruption to businesses and left companies struggling to maintain security and business continuity. As organizations shift to remote working to protect their employees while continuing to serve their customers, they have moved the majority of their activity to the digital world and thus increasing the risk of cyber attacks. The uncertain times created by the COVID-19 pandemic present opportunities for fraudsters to strike at the vulnerable layers of the organization and also to the individuals. The challenge on how to secure new remote working practices and ensuring uninterrupted business continuity without the fear of cybercrime is the need of the hour. To help you understand and respond to the evolving cyber challenges and position your business needs to be cyber resilient. And today's webinar with all experts will provide an overview of the corporate cyber risk landscape. With the steady increase in cybercrime, many organizations across a variety of industries are susceptible to cyber attacks. I'm sure most participants have heard about the targeted attack on Garmin, one of the leading GPS navigation and wearable technology manufacturer. They reportedly suffered a large-scale ransomware attack that crippled their infrastructure, leading to shutting down of all services. And now some ransom money is being asked to Garmin. It is proven that such kind of cyber breaches can lead to tangible costs, brand degradation, and changes in consumer behavior. Indian officials have also reported that malware and phishing schemes operating under the pretext of COVID prevention efforts have seen a steep rise of 86% between March and April. Personal data also continues to be an attractive target during the pandemic. To succeed in the COVID-19 era and post that, companies must rethink their strategies and offerings to accommodate a new security landscape. Although it is impossible to be 100% secure, by developing a sound cyber risk management approach, organizations can implement a number of risk treatment measures for prevention, detection, and response activities to keep cyber risks at an acceptable level. The speakers in today's webinars will go in details of the effectiveness of threat identification and management and the processes to establish adequate controls. I'm sure some of them will also talk about Garmin as well as Twitter hacking that happened recently in last few weeks. As a leader in the implementation of state-of-the-art cybersecurity infrastructure, BSE is fully committed to be compliant with regulations issued by SEBI and the overall protection of exchange ecosystem to cyber threats. We also wish to emphasize on various cybersecurity services being provided by BSE through its subsidiary Marketplace Technologies for strengthening the cyber infrastructure of the broking community and also to the business community at large. Our services of Marketplace Technologies is available to everyone, including the broking community, not exclusive to the broking community. BSE has also set up a next generation cybersecurity operations center as a solution to market security operations center mandated by SEBI. Services such as endpoint protection, monitoring and detection service, training and awareness, etc., are being facilitated, which are both easy to deploy at member premises and are cost effective to implement. With this commitment to cybersecurity, I would want to re-emphasize our efforts and investment towards building a cyber safe environment. I once again welcome all our guest speakers today and all of you who are there to listen to them to this webinar and hope that participants will be able to benefit immensely from the rich talk, experience and discussions that will take place here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ashish. Who better, to talk about, the way the crimes are increasing, and it's an unforeseeable thing when it comes to the world we are living in it. And who better to talk about, or to start with, whereas BSC is concerned, and an opening remark coming from you with regard to crime, with the way the capital market or with the way the organizations are fit today, and the kind of impact it can have, both economical and at the same time damage with regard to the reputation. So yes, let's start with the much awaited talk today to have an introductory, to have keynote speaker as we are glad to have a keynote speaker as Lieutenant General Dr. Rajesh Pant. He's a National Security Coordinator at PMO's Office, Government of India. He is internationally recognized cybersecurity expert who's presently continuing as a prestigious post of NCSC in the National Cybersecurity Secretariat of India. In his capacity, he is responsible for coordinating all activities across multiple sectors to ensure a secure and resilient cyberspace within the nation. He holds a PhD degree in his research in the field of information security metrics. He's also an MTech from IIT Kharagpur, MPhil from Madras University, and a Masters of Management Studies from Osmania University. Prior to this appointment, he was the head of Army Cyber Training Establishment for 3 years. He served in the Army Signals Corps for 41 years, wherein he was awarded 3 times as the President of India by the President of India for distinguished service in the highest order. Consequent to his retirement, he was chairman of listed electronics company, peer review member of NAAC, and a governing council member of IETE India. General Pant brings to the table an interesting mix of military operations, academic excellence, corporate governance, and cybersecurity wisdom. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Khushbu. You have taken 5 minutes of my 15 minutes allotted time already in the introduction. So, good evening to all my fellow panelists. And thanks to the BSc and ARC Legal, if I read it correctly, who are organizing this BSc reboot. Actually, it's not only the BSc that has been rebooted, it's the entire world which has gone into a reset mode. And the theme of the webinar is also very relevant, corporate cyber risk landscape. Well, we are all aware as to how this whole landscape has been transformed due to the work from home and increase in online transactions. The virtual is a new reality, as they say. And I was just reading the Reserve Bank's financial stability report, which came out last Thursday or something, which has also said that the banking industry has been the choice target of cyber criminals, and a number of advisories have been issued by CSIT, which is the Cyber Security and the IT Risk Group, the Department of Supervision. Now, due to the distributed nature of the enterprise, we are wondering where the perimeter has gone actually. All these years, perimeter security used to be the buzzword, but suddenly that perimeter has now extended right up to the homes of people. So cybersecurity has actually really been transformed. And as Khushbu said, we have to connect, convert, and now reboot in our thinking for cybersecurity also. So the risk now has to be seen at different levels. We can start from the application side, that what are the risks at the application level? What are the risks in the entire network level through which we are communicating? What are the risks at the endpoint? And finally, what is the risk at the identity level? Each of these now has come up with new paradigms. At the identity level, now there has to be multi-factor authentication. We just cannot trust that the person who's sitting at the other end of the online and the teleworked environment is actually who he is. So I've been speaking to a number of people, and a number of innovative solutions are coming up, not only the biometrics, the facial and the iris, etc., but combined with the geolocation as well, and of course the mobile and cross-domain sort of identification. So I think that is one of the first few things that any cybersecurity enterprise will have to start thinking about, as to how do I ensure that the identity of the person with whom I am transacting business is whom he claims to be. The endpoint has also got a new meaning now. Let's take the mobile phone, for example. We were doing a sort of a research on what are the different attack vectors in a mobile phone, and we homed down to about 15 different attack vectors. So it's not only the apps, it's the operating system, it's your processor, it's the bundled apps, as they say, that come already installed. It's the communication devices that mobile phone is using, both for Wi-Fi, for Bluetooth. There's a lot of malware which is spread through Bluetooth. It's the memory. So all these things are attack vectors in themselves. So the endpoint, I'm just talking about the mobile phone. I mean, if you take the laptop and the PC, I mean, there'll be so many different attack vectors. So suddenly the endpoint has also become very important. When you come to the network, that itself is an entire chain of devices which will have to be seen as to what is your root of trust, where are the places that you need encryption. Now with the VPN and the cloud services coming in, the entire network has got a new meaning, and finally the app. So this entire chain now has created a new sense of implementing cybersecurity. What I imagine is that behavior analysis and AI, these two aspects are going to play a very major role in ensuring that the person is doing what he's expected to do, and with the apps that he's supposed to be working with. So this is the way that risk has to be seen. This morning we were in a seminar where they are talking of zero trust. I'm thinking of now sub-zero trust. uh, we have to go beyond that. There is no VIP in this domain. You can't trust the system administrator. So you have to go down to a new level of trust. In fact, zero, a level below zero, because zero trust, the hacker also knows what is meant by zero trust, and he's planning something for that. So you have to go for a level beyond that. So these are the new things that are coming out. The cyber attacks, as I said, are getting more and more sophisticated. Ashish mentioned about the Garmin attack. I hope all of you have done a case study of the famous Twitter hack that took place a few days back. Just to recap, on 15th of July, they created this website called Crypto for Health, which was registered with the ICANN, that is the Internet Corporation for Signed Names and Numbers. And I'll just quote from this website. It said that in these hard times of COVID-19, a number of BTC, that is Bitcoin, exchanges like Huobi, KuCoin, Kraken, Gemini, Binance, etc., have partnered to give back 5,000 Bitcoins to the community. This is what the website said. And they gave a special offer, 0.1 to 20 Bitcoins, that if you contribute to a particular address, we will give you double the money back in Bitcoins. So the hackers also hacked into the Twitter accounts of top crypto exchanges like Coinbase and Binance, etc. And from there also identical tweets came out. And if that was not enough, on 16th of July, they also hacked into the accounts of Bill Gates, Bezos, Obama, etc. And there also, in order to create more impact, the same messages came out. So about 378 people fell for it. Total of about $117,000 was collected, and in a matter of 24 hours, they made 90 lakhs, and then that account in which the people had deposited the money was transferred to another account, and that was that. They vanished after that. So whether it is the technical part or whether it is the creativity of these criminals, it is simply amazing when you see. In fact, sometimes I find that the sites that have been cloned are better than the original sites. That is the way they make these. So they are getting more and more smart. These fraudsters, they were always working from home. They have all the time, and now it's not only individuals. There are the mafias. There are, of course, nation state backed actors also there, but they are more for the data and big money. So, these fraudsters, they have a sense of following the money trail. So it happened in USA also when President Trump announced that $2 trillion was being distributed as a welfare measure for the jobless. It happened in India also, where our Prime Minister said that 2 lakh crore rupees was being distributed. The moment they heard this, then they started on their schemes of creating the phishing mails, etc., telling people that if you give this, if you want a tax rebate on this money or something, then click on this link. So it's a very dangerous game that is being played out there against the finance companies. The BFSI sector has to be very, very careful against the cyber fraud, which is getting more and more serious by the day. And I always end with these three hard truths that whatever you do, whatever measures you take, the vulnerabilities will always be there. That's the first one. The second is the attacks will continue to take place. And third is the attribution of these attacks will be as difficult as what it is today. So on that note, I wish the event all success. Once again, my compliments to the BSC for organizing this at a very important juncture. Thank you very much for giving me this honor. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir. We are enlightened with such a knowledge of yours and the kind of grasp you have over the subject. You enlighten us with the importance of identity and authentication and what cybersecurity analysts should keep in mind, and also how important, how crucial role an endpoint plays in field of cybersecurity, and also with regard to when it comes to implementation of a cybersecurity AI, and how important AI and behavior analysis plays important or a crucial role. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for giving a keynote also over the opening session of the series. At the same time, now when we talk about cyber attacks, when we talk about cyber landscape, to identify and to learn more about these cyber attacks and incidents, we need a solid foundation of evolution and method of classification to be able to share information about the attacks and their characteristics. And who better than to learn this from Brijesh Singh to understand these trends. Brijesh Singh, he's an IPS and Inspector General with Maharashtra Police. He established India's premier cyber unit, Maharashtra Cyber, which is the nodal agency for cybersecurity in the state of Maharashtra. Mr. Singh holds several patents and technology and innovations. He's also an author of renowned books published by Penguin titled Quantum Siege and Dangerous Mind. He's also a well-known public figure in cybersecurity space, and you would have seen him on TV interviews, conferences. He's also a regular TV newspaper columnist, writing on issues such as national security, human rights, and data privacy. A rare combination of a thinker, law enforcement officer, innovator, rolled into one. Brijesh Singh firmly believes in enabling power of technology to do immense good for humanity. Over to you, Brijesh.
So, you started with COVID being a black swan event. It's a nice analogy. And General Pant sir gave an excellent overview that there's no perimeter now. So cybersecurity has to be thought of in a comprehensive way. And today, when the world is working at home, the work environment has changed. So you've moved from a very secure environment to a very controlled environment to move to working at your homes where you're using your regular home devices and your home network. So there used to be talks about the risks of BYOD. This is something larger. This is bring your office home. Your office has come home now. This has totally changed the way devices communicate, the way devices authenticate, the way information is sent. This has opened a huge threat surface area. And this threat surface area has to be understood because there are various kinds of malicious actors who are attacking your systems consistently. If you look at the adversarial landscape, you'll find that there are nation states, there are very well-resourced APT groups, the Advanced Persistent Threat Groups. There are at least 4 or 5 large, very well-resourced fin crime groups like Carbona, Cobalt, Lazarus. Sometimes the boundaries between them are also not clear. There are nation states which are working with financial crime groups, and there are APTs which are using code, which is also common to criminal groups, and so on and so forth. But whatever you say, your businesses are under constant attack. There's a very interesting paper which was written in 1971 by a chap called Butler. This guy wrote on the principles of security, and he came up with this concept called fabric of security. So this is a concept which talks about the inevitability of attacks, that attacks would be there. The essential thing is to detect these attacks earlier, to mitigate them and respond to them effectively. So if you're a corporate, you will be attacked. And as somebody has said that if you haven't been attacked, probably you don't know. There have been examples and examples of data breaches. See, we had recently written an article wherein we talked about the data breaches of 8 billion records last year. 2019 had 8 billion data breach records, which were outed in data breach. But May of 2018 or 2020 alone had 8.8 billion records outed. So the scale and complexity and impact of data breaches, hacks, and attacks is increasing. Businesses today face 4 or 5 fundamental things. They face, first of all, a serious threat of ransomware. But see, ransomware is changing, it's evolving. And today, ransomware can be also a data stealing attempt. So while it is encrypting your device, it is also taking away all your data, and the attackers are leveraging this data for blackmail. So this is an issue with ransomware, with the new ransomware. It is also sending data which can be leveraged for either blackmail or secondary attacks. The second thing is data theft. Data breaches are the biggest, are the biggest, most serious problem which the industry is facing today. Because once the data is out, it can be used for compromise of identities across several platforms, hijacking of identity, getting into corporate networks, moving laterally, so on and so forth. And this is huge. Attacks on infra like DDoS have gone to, GBPS pulses. So you have today DDoS attacks which are in gigabytes per second. It's like a tsunami. And I doubt if there is anything which can mitigate a GBPS pulse of distributed denial of service. Another attack on the financial systems or the business systems is business email compromise. Business email compromise is serious. That attacker sits in line. Let us say if you are importing medical equipment from Sweden, then they would sit in line on your communication and say that, hey, due to COVID, my this account is not working. Kindly, transfer money to this account. And you, without realizing that this communication is from an attacker, would transfer that money. This has been happening. This needs continuous vigilance. And slowly, I think cybersecurity has become a business risk. It is no more just an IT risk. It is an existential business risk which we have to understand. So if you find that in most of the organizations now, cybersecurity has started reporting directly to board. It's a leadership issue. It's a board issue. So businesses have to understand that while the advantages of today's connected technology, ICT, give them a kind of omnipresence and great reach and great scalability, but so it does to crime and to the malicious actor. But the malicious actor can continuously scan your infra, can automatically penetrate your infra, can exfiltrate data, can obfuscate the outgoing traffic, and can also use anti-forensic tools to wipe off all trails. This would be very difficult once you start investigating this. We have seen during investigations that it becomes very difficult because there are no traces left. All the logs are wiped, and whatever communication goes on also is on secure encrypted channels, which is also sort of masqueraded as regular traffic. So it's becoming increasingly difficult to tackle cybercrime because cybercriminals are evolving by the day. While we may use all kinds of audits, compliances, certifications, but it's a static model. Cybercrime is something, and hacking is something which is evolving by the second. And as General Pant sir said, that the attacker knows all your baselines. The attacker knows that you're following a zero trust model. The attacker knows that you're following defense in depth. So the attacker begins where you end. And hence, it is very important today that you understand risk pertinent to your infra and to your business. So the risk in pharma would be very different. And the risk in pharma, healthcare would be very different than the risk in education sector or probably a smart city. Or let's say if you are a mobile app payment system or an aggregator, your risks are going to be very different. So you have to have a deeper understanding of your assets, your business processes, and how they map in the cyber domain. This basically will determine how an attacker is going to plan out a kind of attack on you. See, if you look at the trends in last some years, earlier attacks were on accounts that people would want to hijack your identity and through data breaches. They would like to take away your credentials and then do something about it. The next came attacks on infrastructure, which were basically on the type of DDoS or hacking or wiping off your databases or running a disk wiper, so on and so forth, or ransomware. The next and higher level attacks are called gaming the technology, that they are sitting inside your technology. They're sitting inside your payment systems. They're sitting inside your communication channels and using them. So this is the most sinister kind of attack, where it is so evolved that there is hardly anything which would be able to detect it. We need to continuously prepare for this because even today, the greatest risk that is facing businesses is social engineering. The initial vector always, in 3/4 of the cases, almost in 75% cases, is social engineering. And this you can see in spear phishing. Spear phishing is a very targeted attack wherein they understand who you are, they understand what you are doing, they understand what your passwords would be, they understand what you are dealing with, where you are, and they give you a very contextual message which you are bound to click. For example, if you are in a particular sector and some sources have been announced for those sectors, they would create a malicious PDF file or an Excel file which would say that, okay, relief measures for this sector. And you are bound to click on that. Sometimes they would hack your organization emails and send it to all your contacts. So you are getting it from a trusted channel. So it is essential to understand that the modus of cyber criminals, their technology, and their methods of attack are continuously evolving. We have to get into the mindset of cyber risk governance. Risks are going to be there. We have to see to it that how we ensure business continuity. A simple thing like backup. So whatever ransomware strain it would be, but if you have backups, then you will be safe from ransomware. Ransomware is getting smarter. It also hunts for your backups. So you'll need to have some cold backup somewhere which is not connected. So this is the way you will have to understand and calibrate your cyber threat response in terms of the adversarial space. It is important then to go for threat hunting, understanding of how the adversary is functioning, training and making your staff aware, and also understanding that you have to have you have to understand cybersecurity in your domain, not as a general principle or not as a principle of certification or not as a general framework given by NIST or somebody. When you apply this document, a live document, to your own systems, you build your own cybersecurity. It is time that cybersecurity is taken up as a leadership issue. It is taken as a business risk, and we get into a framework of cyber risk governance. And especially during times of COVID, we educate our staff every day and tell them about the latest cyber threats which are masquerading as general communication. While I feel that much is being done in the Indian cyberspace, right from Janakant's office to Search India, everybody is taking great efforts. BSC has one of the best systems that we have ever seen. Shiv and his team are doing a wonderful job. I feel that this webinar is a great opportunity wherein we reiterate that cyber risk is existential and we need to prepare for this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brajeshji. You enlighten us with if you're a corporate, you will be attacked. That's like a thumb rule. One has to understand now that and also you need to you put an emphasis that one need to understand how to mitigate risk, because you practically cannot avoid a cyber attack, and also to ensure that by mitigating risk, one has to ensure that ensure the business connectivity or continuity, especially at the time of COVID. Also, you emphasize on the part that cybersecurity should be taken as a business risk. One has to understand, or the corporates now need to understand, that it's no more just an IT risk; it's a business risk altogether. And looking at today's cyber threat is incredibly serious. Looking at today's scenario, and it is growing day by day. Cyber intrusions are becoming more commonplace, more dangerous, and more sophisticated. Cyber criminals are business savvy and have exacted devastating attacks, whereas businesses, government entities, and critical infrastructure or sectors or institutes are concerned. Thank you so much for enlightening us with knowledge with regard to practicality, and also at the same time what one has to do when such attack has happened. One cannot avoid, but one side of it as to how to avoid it, and at the same time how to keep yourself safe. But at the same time, when such risk happens, what exactly one has to cater to. Thank you so much. Now, in order to understand one, as rightly said, that it's not possible to build a strong defense without acquiring and maintaining a solid understanding of how attack work and how effective they might be. And in order to understand that, we have Professor Yuval Shavit. Professor Yuval Shavit is an electrical engineer is a professor at electrical engineering at Tel Aviv University, Israel. Before joining the university, he worked for 4 years in networking center of Bell Labs, Horndale, NJ. He published seminal papers in fields of caching, routing, IP hijack attacks, and network measurements. In 2004, he incepted DIMES project for mapping internet infrastructure using thousands of lightweight software agents, which revolutionized the field of internet measurement and mapping. Data gathered by the DIMES, which was used by academicians worldwide. Now, in 2014, he established BG Project, a company that uses the DIMES approach to protect nation and large organizations against IP hijack attacks and provide network infrastructure intelligence. Over to you, Professor Yuval.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and I'm really honored to be here, and thank you for the invitation. I cannot share my screen. There might be some permission problem here.
Yeah, you want to share your screen? Let me make you presenter. Just a moment.
Oh. Okay, I hope now you can see it. Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is IP hijack attacks, which is not so well known, but you know the risks of this attack is tremendous, as I'm going to show you in a minute. So when we look at the internet, you know, the regular way we do anything almost on the internet is what we call the client-server model. You know, the client send a query, suppose it's a web server, and then it get a result. What's happening with IP hijack attack is somewhere in the world, and it doesn't have to be close to either the client or the server, there's an attacker, and he managed to divert traffic towards the server to the attacker network. Then the traffic is sent back to the server, and the server answers traffic to the client. What we have here basically is forming man-in-the-middle attack. Now the attacker in the middle of the communication between the client and the server. Why do we care about this? Because now we can do lots of things. You know, basically in many cases, IP hijack attack is the first stage of any advanced persistence threat, and by stopping it short at this stage, we are stopping the APT from happening. What people are doing with this type of attacks, for example, is to break the encryption and do espionage. They can do Trojan insertion to your network and many other things. And because they're in the middle of the communication, and because communication is not disrupted, in many cases it is go unnoticed for many weeks and sometimes even for months, which makes a perfect tool for espionage if you want to see your data, and also to deal with your data, try to alter it on its way. Remember that once I am in the middle of your communication, I can do, for example, a downgrade attack, so it will be easier for me to break the encryption. So in the past, IP hijack attack were done using BGP, which is the Internet Routing Protocol. This is why there's something called BGP hijack attacks. But BGP hijack attack can be discovered using monitoring services or the BGP announcement, and then such attack will be revealed. However, what we see in the recent years is a trend to move to stealthier attack. The idea is we want to be in your communication loop, but without being noticed. And this can be done with many ways. One such way is to do what we call data plane manipulation. It's manipulating the traffic without having any signature in the internet control protocols like BGP. And we've seen things happening in the exchange points. We've seen things happening in ISPs. Another way is to do what we call stealth BGP attacks. You can once you know a BGP is monitored, you can design your BGP attack so it will not be captured. And there are various ways to do those kind of things. If you think this is something like a small scale attack, no, there are many of them happening. This is a report by the Internet Society claiming 14,000 incidents in 2017. And mind you that they can only report about attacks that they can capture. We see many attacks that nobody else can capture. So the number of real attacks is much higher. There was a similar attack report by Symantec a year earlier, also reporting thousands of such attacks. So we want to detect this. And most current solution is just saying, let's monitor BGP, and then we'll do some limited path analysis. Mostly the analysis captures the beginning of the route, you know, the origin, is it the right origin or the wrong origin, maybe the upstream provider. At BG Protect, we took a more comprehensive look at this. We do active monitoring, where we actually inject probes into the network to see how the network behaves to those probes. And then we can detect not only a BGP attack, but other type of attacks. The other thing we're doing is that we look at the entire BGP path for the analysis, so we can see problems somewhere farther away from the source. We look at the geography of the path. In many cases, BGP on BGP level, and I'll show you an example, everything looks fine. But when you go to the geography, you see that the traffic doesn't go where you think it should go. We look at the ownership of the route, look at delays. So there are many aspects of the routes that we look at, and this enables us to capture many attacks that nobody else can do. How do we do this? So we have a global network of software agents that protect your network. Like if you're a bank, we can protect your main branches, your back offices, and make sure, and your servers in the cloud, making sure that everything is not hijacked. The agents, those small software agents, send the results to a server in the cloud, and the analysis there, if there is a problem, reveals send an alert, which can send either to our own SOC, to the customer SOC, or to both. Some of our clients don't feel comfortable to have their traffic, so sensitive traffic, somewhere in the cloud, although we secure our cloud very well. And what they do instead, they opt for an on-prem solution where you take the company out of the loop and basically everything is operated by the client. And we allow you not only to operate the system, but also to control its sensitivity and its model of threat. So you have control of almost any aspect of the system. If you open the hood and see what's happening inside, what's going on is that there are many analysis engines inside the system. Each one is responsible for one specific aspect of the route. And if any of them is revealing a problem, it generates automatically additional monitoring tasks to make sure this problem is consistent and to understand just how wide it is. So it will generate maybe additional monitoring tasks from other locations around the world, close to where the first incident happened, to understand just how wide the effect of the attack is. This thing is done with a unique algorithm and unique database that we maintain in our data set, and I'm not going to dwell on it. Finally, I would say that we use advanced deep learning technology in our tools. We reach superior accuracy with this technology, and we are now building additional blocks using deep learning. And I'm going to actually talk about some of them as an invited speaker in SICOM conference 2 weeks from now. I want to show you some examples. So what happened 2 years ago is that we start seeing that the name that we keep seeing in many attacks are two names, Russia and China. And China is especially active, and not only in the Asia Pacific region, all over the world. So what we did is that I wrote a paper where I actually showed China's way of doing those type of attack. What you see here is one example of traffic from Canada, from Ottawa, where the Canadian government is, to a government website in Korea. And you see this is on the bottom, you see the regular path where traffic goes from Canada to the US to Korea. And on the top, you see a deflection towards China. And this situation was actually happening for about half a year. So for half a year, the Chinese were listening to the communication between these two governments. The result of this article was I would say, frenzy at both the Canadian and the American government. I was testifying in front of the Canadian Parliament Security Committee, and also I was at meeting with the U.S. Senate. And just recently, two months ago, there was an official Congress report asking not to extend China telecom permit to work in the US, and they cite my paper as one of the reasons for this, because I understand just how dangerous the Chinese are. I'll show you some additional examples. So what you see here is, what I'm going to show you now is a deflection of traffic from France to the US, where the victims are banks, hedge funds, and also a very large and prestigious government organization in the US. And the interesting thing here is that on BGP, everything looks okay. So if you're just monitoring BGP, you wouldn't see anything. But when you look at the geography, you see routes going from France to the US, taking a tour through the Ukraine. And I don't want to go into details, but we actually investigated this attack, and it's very suspicious. We notified the client asked us to mitigate it, and within half an hour, the attack stopped. That's just an example of how the route looks like. I don't want to go into it. Another thing we see a lot is bad configuration of DNSs. We see it all over the world. People, DNSs are usually done with Anycast. It's a very sensitive service. And what I'm going to show you now is a problem that actually happened in India. What we saw is that traffic to the K-root server serviced by Tata to people in India is sent to surprise Iran. And this is really surprising because the K-root servers have two instances in India. One you see here in Delhi and one in Mumbai. So instead of sending Indian DNS traffic to either of those two servers in India, they were going to Iran. And what we did, we notified the Indian embassy in Tel Aviv about the problem. We sent them a report, and they contacted Tata, and the things was corrected. And this is how the route looked like. So this is an example of a route from Bangalore. You see the beginning of the route is in India, then it goes to Marseille, France, Frankfurt, and to Iran. This is really unacceptable routing of DNS. And remember, DNS is not encrypted. So it makes hijacking of your traffic very easy. If you're a bank, for example, they can set up an impersonation site, and all your clients will go there. Last example, a route link to Bangladesh. What we noticed is 3,500 address prefixes are diverted to Bangladesh. We notified Telecom Italia, and they stopped most of it. Here are just three examples. So we see routes from Australia, from New Zealand, and from Japan, all going to Ireland through the US. This is on the top right. Then on the bottom, you see what's happening during the attack. everything is going to Bangladesh. And if you look at the route, this is the regular route, say from Japan, US, Great Britain, Ireland. In the attack, route goes through Hong Kong to Singapore, to Bangladesh, then back to Singapore and to Ireland. So this is just one example out of 3,500, as I said. And just show you how things look like. Basically, the Bangladesh company is announcing routes to Telecom Italia, and Telecom Italia tell all its big friends around the world, AT&T and Cogent and NTT Japan, how this is the route, please go through me to Bangladesh, and everybody follows. Of course, during the attack, all these routes suffered tremendous delays, increased 50% and more. So to summarize, IP hijack attacks are really a significant risk. When we look at who is at risk, we see that many attacks are on infrastructures, on government entities, financial entities, but basically everybody with valuable data is a target of such an attack, because espionage and Trojan insertion, these are the tools we want to play with if we are the bad guys. So thank you very much for the invitation and the ability to convey this message, and I can take questions if there's any.
Thank you very much, Yuval. That was a fascinating talk. And you gave us a good deep dive into the border gateway protocol and IP hijack attacks. You gave interesting examples from Canada, Italy, and even India. So I know that we here at the government level or at the level of corporates, especially state governments, may not be even aware that this happens between nations. So this is an attack basically on the internet infrastructure, which nation states are capable of. So it was a fascinating talk. We thank you for making us aware that this is a risk. And you also talked about how this risk can be identified by understanding the geography of routing and also by looking at specific parameters of delay and other telltale signs. We are really fascinated by your talk, and we expect that we would learn much more from you in future. Our next speaker is Khushbu, and where Khushbu pitches in is that after every data breach or after every hack, there are going to be legal implications. And she would be talking about the legal implications of hack or corporate data breach. She is a practicing advocate. She practices before the Supreme Court of India, and she is also founding partner of Art Legal. She specializes in litigation practice pertaining to business and corporate issues, and also handles matters pertaining to information technology and crime. She is a recognized name in the field of cybersecurity and financial crime involving technologies. She is a sought-after name for television discussions and an acclaimed speaker at various fora. She has worked for institutional capacity building by imparting training to employees of governments and international bodies. Several initiatives for creating awareness on cybercrime and engendering a better understanding of infotech laws have been led by her. She also has been contributing to Maharashtra Cyber in an advisory role. He is a known public speaker, skills trainer, opinion column writer for national newspapers, and a popular guest on television. She speaks and writes extensively on subjects related to corporate law, privacy, and cyber issues. So, Khushbu, go ahead and tell us about what legal risks await for our corporate leaders.
Thank you so much. Well, as said, that cybercrime is not a one-time event. And just as an avenue of income has been blocked, one avenue of income is blocked, the cyber criminals will quickly shift to move to the another one, often more sophisticated means of entry. They even try, the tried and tested methods of attacks such as ransomware can be subject to change. Threat actors apply to principles but interpret execution in a very new and a different manner. As rightly said by, uh, from dignitaries such as cybersecurity dignitaries such as Dr. General Rajesh Pant talking about as to how India is dealing with cyber threats. from you, from Mr. Brijesh, to talk about how one has to, deal with such kind of technical insights as to how cyber threats can impact businesses. Let me restrict myself to the legal risk of cyber threats. I would restrict myself to the legal part, and I would want you to know that it is very important to understand that how you would be impacted legally in case of a hack or a data breach. Yes, understandable. Whereas your economic impact would be there would be a reputation impact, but at the same time, legal impact is also crucial. Let's take an example that you are a CEO of a large pharma institute, and one fine morning you hear on news as to there is a data breach in your company, and let's say that happened at the vendor side of it. Now within minutes you see all that thing on TV, on various forums, with the way light of speed internet has it, it's all over the places. In the coming time, you'll be flooded with calls or things from your vendors, your customers, vendors, stakeholders would be asking you a lot of questions, and you will be answerable to your phone, and which will be absolutely worried about it. So one has to understand that how to unfold the legal part. You have to have a technical team to find out how to patch the vulnerability at the first, repair the system where that vulnerability is there. The second would come as to the forensics part, as to, has to have forensics in place, to have evidence, have to understand things. But at the same time, you need to have legal SOPs in place. You need to prepare yourself with regard to damage control has to be mitigated. So what answers has to go, have to take care of the crisis managements. All these replies have to be vetted by the legal part of it. You need to have somebody from outside. It has to be some outside view to understand that whether it's a financial loss, it's an identity theft, or it's a very normal, understandable. You need to understand the kind of data that has breach. You need to understand the type of data that there is a breach. Critical data, sensitive data. You need to understand whether you need to understand whether you need to um, inform your the data principal as to your customers whose data is breached, whether you have to inform them independently, individually, or whether you have to have a notification issued, at a larger level. You need to understand nature of data, critical data, personal data, sensitive data, health data that comes under the critical category. So one has to understand the kind of breach and what kind of data breach it is. Um, there would be a lot of regulatory compliances one has to have, uh, depending on because depending on national level or international level as to what all have existence in. Right from India, you need to have, if you have an existence in Europe, then you need to have GDPR compliance, or somewhere else. If it's critical data, let's say health data, then HIPAA in US would take place. What kind of safety measures or procedure you need to follow? Whereas India is concerned, yes, we do have data protection rules in place. We are waiting for the new data protection bill to come in existence. And if you have existence, let's say in different regions, then you need to comply with all of them. Uh, uh, let's um, let's take it. Let's take GDPR as an example, or PDPR also. If it, the penalty is as high as almost, it may have 4% to 4% to 2 to 4% of global turnover can be a penalty that can be imposed on you. And let's say if you're in existence in India and in European nation, there might be double penalty on you. And the kind of safety measures or procedure one has to comply with would depend on the kind of country you have existence into. So you need to prepare your reports in the same manner. And also, you need to prepare prior. Let's not wait for the breach to happen. Let's have a little prior measures, or safety measures as to legal side of it, to have, or precautionary measures to keep in place before, because as rightly said by Brijesh ji also, that one cannot avoid. One cannot avoid the cyber attack. So the kind of precaution or the steps one has to take, you have to have your audits in place. You need to have your system in place. The kind of compliance one has to have. Let's just, if I may just restrict myself as of whereas India is concerned. So the data protection, IT Act rules of Information Technology, Reasonable Security Practice and Procedure of Sensitive Personal Data or Information Rule 2011 that specifically deals with the kind of safety measures one has to keep in place. If I may just mention one, the international standard of ISO 27001 is the standard which has been referred over there, which a company has to comply with. We might see in the future a very specific industry-wise standard, depending on whether you're a pharma, whether you're corporate, your IT industry or something else. So that we might see that also at the same time, we might have something called personal data, non-personal data, sensitive data. So we might see that in future, but as of now, one has to comply with this international standard ISO 27001 to comply with, and in case such compliance is not being done at that reasonable, the so-called reasonable security practices which a company has to comply and keep in place. If that's not being followed with, then you might have obligations. At the same time, you need to have your ecosystem, whether breach, what obligations you have with the vendor, what contracts you have with vendors, how what contractual obligations you have, whereas vendor and you are concerned, whereas your user and you are concerned. You need to keep that also in place. Have a proper SOP in place with regard to breach. Let that be a yearly or a biannually kind of procedure or a measure to be taken, and let that continue as to understanding. And also one has to understand all those privacy principles and other data breach principles, data principles, and at the same time, these standards, maybe national and international standard, comply with all of it, have that that aspect in place. You need to understand what our Indian laws are, whether you have to report after reasonable cybersecurity, whether that has taken place or not. But apart from that, you need to report it, whether to report it to certain, whether to report into your specific regulator, whether as financial institutions are concerned, your RBI or any other regulator which is in place with the kind of data you hold. At the same time, have to have a police complaint filed, whether to proceed now against the cyber criminal is a personal is a later stage, but yes, have all these things measures in place. I think, over to you, Brijesh. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Khushbu, for giving an excellent understanding of the risks corporate face in case they are breached. And you also spoke of a crisis management plan in terms of notification, in terms of dealing with regulators, in terms of dealing with stakeholders, in terms of audits and compliances. This, I think, needs to be converted into a tabletop exercise, and corporates need to do it again and again, that they sit down and think of this scenario and see what legal measures they should follow and how legally their risks and costs unfold. Wonderful perspective. Now, Khushbu, I would again go back to you, ask you to introduce Shiv, who is one of the organizers of this event. And Shiv has been a wonderful friend for these many years, one of the most serious and talented professionals in field of cybersecurity, who handles this great infra of BSc. So over to you to introduce Shiv.
So good evening, everyone. So,
Shiv, let me just introduce you a little.
and it's okay. It's okay.
Go ahead. Actually, we need no introduction.
No, it's okay. So good evening, everyone. We have now reached to the end of the today's opening session in our series of webinar on reboot fintech law, focusing to build resilient in a connected world and of finance, technology, and law. This COVID pandemic situation has changed the entire landscape of the way we are used to do the business and affect almost all segments. Now, business are focusing on to the make their platform and their own operation with the maximum resources to be in office, whether it is B2B or whether it is B2C. And the office culture is now completely moved to the work from home, or you can say work from anywhere culture. And looking at the risk and the way the COVID-19 sustained in our country, this situation is not going to be changed very soon. Having said that, I would say that almost all financial segment organization and their consumers are highly interconnected and depend upon the digital platform to continue their business as usual. This has increased the cyber landscape for all institutes with and these consumers, since the cyber threat actors have now continuously focusing on the utilizing the opportunity by exploiting the loopholes which institute may have opened due to the sudden panic cause and change in the business scenario, and thus changing the system to suit the need of the business. And hackers are also targeting more end users, be it a consumer or a company employee, as more people are now connected and working from home and with the open internet connection. Uh, Thus, it becomes very important that there should be a better harmony between finance, technology, and law to protect the consumers and the employees' interests while running the business as usual. At BSc, we have implemented, the state-of-the-art technology and next-gen cybersecurity operations center 27 4 into 7, which include niche technologies like UBA, user behavior anomaly detection, NTAPT, deception technology, real-time forensics, and many more. And the USP of next-gen cyber SOC is not only all this technology, but the capability.
I think you- just a moment.
I think Shiva has been logged out.
I think we have a different issue. Um, let's have him in the next episode of this BSB reboot. Thank you so much. I would like to thank all the distinguished guests and all the participants. Thank you so much for enlightening us of your thoughts, and also all the participants to be patient and to be part of this initiative of BSc and our people on titled BSc reboot. So I would just close on the remark that uh, let's connect, converge, and reboot, and let's relaunch ourselves in the bravery world. Thank you so much.